What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Week 6 edition of Week 5 Sunday Night Football halftime show. We're recapping it, but we're also talking about Week 6 already and how we can take Week 5 and apply it to Week 6. With me on tonight's show, I'm David Kitchen. With me on tonight's show, we got Jeff Johnson, my co-host on SiriusXM. We also have Beer Makers Fan. I've co-hosted a few times with him on SiriusXM as well. You know him as one of the OGs of RG and DFS. And then we also have Yards Per Gretch, at Yards Per Gretch on Twitter. Ben Gretch, he is the editor-in-chief of Fantasy Insiders and also the author of Stealing Signals. Boys, how was Week 5 for you? Good.
So I've been seeing a lot of Twitter buzz about how terrible Week 5 has been, but I am killing it in Week 5. So I have no complaints. My only complaint is I had Robbie Anderson on the bench in our home league day.
We'll talk about Robbie Anderson now because I picked him up when Rick Wolf and Colton Wolfman, they dropped him. They dropped him in our SiriusXM league. So the fact is, like, there are going to be shares of Robbie Anderson out there this week. It'll be fun to talk about. Beer, how was your Week 5?
A little rough. Too invested in little Doug Baldwin. So one catch when the 60-some points scored in the game and the dude gets one catch. I mean, that price tag on DraftKings just sucked me in like a vortex. And here I sit, a sad, broken man.
Ben?
I was also very heavily on Doug Baldwin. I had some afternoon slate sweats where I basically had the nuts plus Doug Baldwin. Made some decent money on some GPPs that if Baldwin would have done anything, probably could have taken him down. But late in that game, Pete Carroll's decision to call timeout there when the Rams sent out the punt team, they're gonna give it back to Seattle. 4th and inches. I mean, I don't know how you look a gift horse in the mouth there. I know the clock was going to be running, but they made the decision to call a timeout and let the Rams rethink that decision. And the Rams had no timeouts. They were going to punt or potentially fake, but they went timeout.
It's weird because they'd never have messed up late game situations.
Right. That was so brutal. And it was their last, they were going to get the ball back. It was going to be their last time out on offense. I understand trying to save the clock, but there was still like a minute 40. You could use that timeout on offense, but most importantly, you gave your opposing team an opportunity to rethink a bad decision, and then they went for it, got it, game over.
Well, I mean, Ben, you know what a short clock does to you. We talked about
this. We are not advocates of the short clock on the Fantasy Insiders channel. Ben, I don't want to rub too much in your face right now, especially you being a Seattle homer. But do you remember like 3 or 4 weeks ago when I said, "What do you think about David Moore? I really like him." And you're like, "Oh, that guy? Who cares about that guy?" I think it's pretty much what you said.
I said they have guys like this every preseason. Yeah. Casey Williams was the guy last year. Then they cut him at the end of preseason. He ended up jumping on the Browns, and everyone thought he might stick there. He hasn't.
Okay, did Casey Williams have 2 touchdowns in a game last year ever? Okay,
no, Dave. It's happening.
Okay, let's talk about the boom. So we'll go around. Everyone, give me your big boom of the week, someone that you like, just you're really impressed by their performance. Ben, we'll start with you.
One of the first ones that stuck out to me was the Jets running game. I mean, Isaiah Crowell went over 200 yards. I don't know if Bilal ended up over 100, but was, I guess 99 and was right there with him. They ran for over 300 yards. I mean, that backfield is split. It's not a very good offense, but they have had some sneaky fantasy value so far this year. So, we don't like split backfields, obviously, but I did think that was pretty interesting to see that they were able to run for over 300 yards as a team today.
Well, long 77-yard touchdown by Crowell. And it wasn't just that, it was who they did it against. They did against the Broncos. So
yeah, and the Broncos are traveling to the East Coast. I mean, that we see some flat games from teams in those spots sometimes, but this isn't the first time, obviously, the Jets have had. I mean, Crowell's had some other long runs so far this year. He had a big, I think, against the Lions in their win he had another long touchdown run and I think a 2 TD game in that game. And Powell's been pretty efficient all year, just hasn't had the big runs yet. But I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think the Jets, like, I haven't played any of these backs in like pretty much any league so far, but I'm wondering if you should start considering that.
I've got plenty of Bilal Powell and Isaiah Crowell. I went through different phases in the preseason of them both. And yeah, like Bilal Powell, he was the guy that's supposed to get in the first team and also like negative game script. So, Isaiah Crowell is not supposed to be doing this 77-yard touchdown. Crow Dog, he's eating. Jeff, who is your big booms of the week?
It was nice to see Demaryius Thomas finally get his. Yes, I know they were down. This is the opposite side in that game, but I was impressed with what I saw from Demaryius Thomas. The old man still showing out a little bit. 5 receptions for 105 yards and a touchdown. I mean, if you don't own Demaryius Thomas and he's out there in your leagues, not out there on the free agent, on the waiver wire or anything like that, but if you pick the correct owner, you could make a really cheap buy low offer for Demaryius Thomas, and you might have a few more of these games over the course of the season.
Courtland Sutton got that first touchdown. I thought he was toast.
Courtland Sutton almost had a godlike touchdown reception later in that game. One-handed, he was probably like, his hand was probably 12 feet in the air, almost came down and snatched it one-handed. He was just out of bounds, though. That would have been really nice to see, a 2-touchdown game from Courtland Sutton. 12. But I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about Emmanuel Sanders later in the show.
Yeah. All right, Beer. Big boom.
Welcome to the party, Odell Beckham. Finally finds the end zone. He not only catches one, but he throws a touchdown today as well. So we knew it was only a matter of time, getting a ton of air yards, that he was going to score, and we finally saw that breakout today. He talks trash about his quarterback, and he gets 14 targets. What do you know?
The squeaky wheel narrative lives on, so he gets, he has a good game. And also Antonio Brown had a really slow start, and I was thinking, why did I sacrifice C.J. Beathard in my FanDuel cash lineups for Antonio Brown? And then he totally redeems himself in that 47-yard touchdown in the second half.
So you're talking about the squeaky wheel with Odell Beckham, but Pat Shurmur hates Odell Beckham Jr.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely. You could just tell in the post-game press conference, he hates having to talk about this.
Well, maybe he hates the drama. He doesn't hate Odell.
I mean, he doesn't hate Odell if they're going to win some ball games, but they're losing and Odell is complaining. That's like a double whammy.
Yeah, but Odell's a little bit better now that he's had all that. All right, other big booms of the week, guys that went off. James Conner, really solid performance there. Also, Kenyon Drake was the other guy that I thought 11 targets, 125 yards. We talked about them this past week. I had a trade offer as far as Jordy Nelson. I have Jordy Nelson. Someone offered me Jordy Nelson or Kenyon Drake for Jordy Nelson. I kind of turned it down. Jordy Nelson also scored a touchdown today, but the whole Kenyon Drake thing, it still feels a little bit rocky territory with this Miami running back situation. We might hit on that a little bit later. Also, if you have any questions for us, hit us up on Twitter at Fantasy Insiders, and we'll try to answer some questions towards the end of the show. Let us know what you think. Let's talk about one of Jeff's favorite thing to talk about, Big Bust. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Jeff likes Big Bust. So, Jeff.
I can't lie.
Jeff, who is a big bust for you today?
In football?
Yeah, football.
Oh, yeah. Football, big bust. Well, for me, I'm always going to love it when Julio Jones does not catch a touchdown pass.
Mm-hmm.
I think his numbers behind the no touchdown passes or catches also support the bust tag on him. I mean, this Atlanta Falcons offense just didn't look right today against Pittsburgh, and you'd think if they get down like they were, Julio would absolutely eat, but he's not scoring touchdowns. So if he doesn't have 100 yards, you're going to be disappointed on a weekly basis with him. So Julio gets my big bust tag today.
Nice. Ben, you already talked about Doug Baldwin, and so did Beer. I had him in my DraftKings cash lineup. He's just very frustrating. One catch, and not much else. What happened there?
I don't know. I mean, it's bizarre because he came back last week and he ran a route on 80-something% of their dropbacks. He tied for the 5th best weighted opportunity rating, which is like the team share of targets and team share of air yards combined. So he came back and he looked just like what we thought he would be coming into the year, which was the dominant wide receiver 1. because this team doesn't really have a lot of other options. And then it was the Tyler Lockett, David Moore show. I mean, we know now that probably Brandon Marshall's not going to be a key part of this offense going forward, but interesting that David Moore was the guy being so productive and Baldwin struggled. I mean, it could have been kind of a game plan thing because the Rams are without Talib on the outside and Marcus Peters, I mean, just doesn't look great the last couple of weeks. And they do have a good slot corner in Nickel Roby Coleman. So it could have been that a little bit, but Minnesota last week, when they put up a lot of numbers on this Rams secondary, did fine through the slot. I think their receivers combined for I think it was 145 yards out of the slot last week. So surprising to me, definitely. I mean, I had him in a lot of spots and really thought that he was healthier than his price tag indicated. And he was, for DFS and was somebody you could play in seasonal. And we just didn't see it today.
All right.
I'm going to, in honor of my Brewers, I'm going to channel my inner Harry Doyle here from Major League. One goddamn catch, one goddamn yard. Are you kidding me right now?
That was bad. It was bad, especially when your Packers had MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, go off at a touchdown. Like I heard of some other people that had Marvin Jones exposure, and then like the whole weird blogger not seeing Marvin Jones warming up, people actually pivoted from Marvin Jones to Doug Baldwin. And that was a mistake. I want to talk about Amari Cooper just for a quick second.
That's all you need.
Yes.
Yeah, we can move on.
Oh, man. He had one target. They lost 26-10. He only had one target. Like, I get it, like, if you have, like, a bad game, but only one target? I don't understand this. He's coming off a good – it's like, if you look at his game, like, first week, he had one catch for 9 yards. Second game, 10 catches for 116 yards. Third game, 2 catches for 17 yards. Last week, 8 catches for 128 yards.
So next week, we get back on the even weeks. He's gonna smash.
But I don't understand this. I just don't get it.
Well, imagine if you were an Amari Cooper owner, like what that must feel like. Because I'm not an Amari Cooper owner. I stayed away from him all draft season. But can you honestly start him week to week? I mean, you can play the matchups, but we thought this was going to be a positive game script for him because we knew they were going to be down. Even in positive game scripts, you can't feel good about putting him into your lineups. That's for sure. And I mean, what we've seen so far is an inconsistent Amari Cooper who looks to be somebody who quits in the middle of the game if he's not getting the ball very much. So if I'm an Amari Cooper owner, I don't see myself starting him until he produces for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. And who knows when that's going to be.
And then you sell.
Right. It's like
the big concern right now is that Martavis Bryant is getting more and more involved in the offense. He had 3 targets today, plenty of air yards. He got some deep targets last week, even as Amari Cooper performed and the week before. So that's my biggest concern right now for Cooper is like, I don't know what's going on with this every other week stuff, but with Nelson not being washed and Bryant being there and Jared Cook seeing plenty of targets, there's kind of a lot of options in this pass offense now.
You've got, as far as like Tevin Coleman with Devonta Freeman coming back, he didn't have a really good game either. The whole Titans offense didn't have a good game. Some costly drops and turnovers. Dan Lewis, Taywan Taylor, kind of a lack of scoring this week as far as storylines go. And also David Johnson. Two touchdowns. Like, I mean, what do we say? What do we say for that for David Johnson? Is he back, or is it just that he played San Francisco?
Yeah, I think he's going to maintain a really high percentage of their scoring equity. He had 3 of their 5 offensive touchdowns on the season coming into the game. He scored 2 of their 3 today. Offensive touchdowns. They also had a defensive touchdown today. And I think you still have to be concerned because Mike McCoy is using him like he used Melvin Gordon for years where, just very, very predictable 1st and 10 up the gut play calling. They're lining up under center. They're making it very obvious they're not going to pass, and they're just running right up the gut. He averaged 3.1 rush yards per carry today. And if you watch the game, like he had 18 carries, probably 9 of them were these 1st and 10 runs straight up the gut that all went for 2, 3, 1 yard. And I mean, I don't even know, you can't really put it on him. I'm not putting it on him, but he only got 3 targets again today as well. I mean, he's going to maintain his elite upside because he has the touchdown equity. He's a big back and obviously a trusted goal line presence, and he has the receiving ability, but the usage is still just awful.
All right. Speaking of like awful usage, Packers running backs. Like we knew that McCarthy had talked about the running back splitting, liking the running back by committee thing. And who doesn't like a nice RBBC? But what I'm saying is like, no one is distinguishing themselves. You've got Aaron Jones, who Aaron Rodgers thought like, he made it pretty clear he wants him out there. Well, if you take a look at the snap counts today, Jamal Williams had 33, Ty Montgomery 29, Aaron Jones only 22. Jeff, what do you make out of this?
Well, I would think that Aaron Rodgers gets the LeBron James treatment. If he says, I like this guy, then that guy gets most of the carries, or most of the opportunities. Not the case. Aaron Jones looked good today with the opportunities had. I didn't think Jamal Williams looked terrible, and Ty Montgomery obviously has his role in this offense as a pass-catching running back. But I think Aaron Jones was the victim of game scripting, the fact that Green Bay was down 24 to nothing at halftime. So it forced the hand of the Green Bay Packers. I do think Aaron Jones can catch the ball out of the backfield, so it'd be nice if they gave him some run in the passing game there. But for me, as somebody who owns Aaron Jones in several leagues, I've been high on Aaron Jones all season. I thought if Jamal Williams was ineffective the first 2 games, that they would naturally make the transition to Aaron Jones sooner rather than later. This is really discouraging because if you're an Aaron Jones owner, you expect more than 7 carries in a given week, even if the game script isn't quite perfect for Aaron Jones. So as somebody who owns Aaron Jones, I thought he was a top 24 running back once he comes back from suspension. I'm definitely frustrated. I guess I could say that. I'm probably still going to be optimistic for the rest of the season prognosis for him, but this is definitely frustrating.
Beer?
I think it's a great buy low on Aaron Jones. Get San Francisco next week at home. So it was game script. They all have their roles. Jamal Williams, okay, good in pass blocking. Ty Montgomery, a good pass receiver, obviously out of the backfield. Jones, I think, can do it all, but when you're down 24-0, they're going to lean more on Montgomery or Williams for that pass protection. So I would be going out and get Aaron Jones. Clearly the best running back. He'll have better game scripts. He's clearly the best guy on that team. So I think a great buy low target right now.
All right. You've got some people that got hurt today. Matt Breida, Pro Football Doc. Dr. Childs says it's a high ankle sprain based on the video. So he'll be, I guess, getting an MRI and having that looked at. We'll talk about the implications of that later. Also, Austin Seferian-Jenkins didn't really play in the second half in this game. This game was a whole other topic that we could spend some time on. Brandon Cooks, RIP Brandon Cooks. He are we sure that he had a concussion, or they just like?
Yeah, both him and Kupp were announced on the broadcast as out with concussions.
All right. So
that Brandon Cooks play was crazy. I think the doctors were on the field checking on him before the whistles.
Yeah.
It was insane. I was like, who are these people on the field? And they were actually doctors tending to Brandon Cooks.
Like they knew exactly what was going to happen. And then Corey Grant has a Liz Frank injury. Can we call it Liz Frank?
More fun.
It's Liz Frank, but
what's that?
Liz Frank is
Liz Frank is like the fancy version of it.
I like it.
Yeah. It's named after Mr. Liz Frank, who is the first guy that actually had this injury. He's headed to the IR. So you got Yeldon, who is just like right now looks like to be a stud for these Jags. If you drafted him as such, another win for the 0 RB, Gretch.
Yeah, I mean, he was big today. I'm sure a lot of people were playing him in DFS. People who had him in their seasonal leagues probably popped him in with no Fournette, and Fournette's probably going to be out a few more weeks. He's already re-aggravated the hamstring once, and they've kind of indicated they want to be careful with him. So for the next few weeks, you could definitely ride TJ Yeldon.
All right. And then as far as like going forward, TJ Yeldon, his value is like Fournette. We don't even know when Fournette's going to come back. Like it
Right.
could be, it could be like 4 or 5 weeks from now. It could be more than that. When you re-injure a hammy, we mentioned Pro Football Doc. I was listening to one of his streams last week when he was saying that he wants to see Fournette 3 full practices in a row before he gets back out there. He thinks that they'll be like just super cautious with them. So we'll have to see. Also, Dalvin Cook was a scratch. Lamar Miller scratch. Like lots of running backs getting hurt right now. It's tough. It's a tough year for running backs. That fragility, it's back, baby, with the running backs. All right. As far as like people that were panicking on, Deion Lewis and Derrick Henry, a little bit of panic there. Jeff, you got like Deion Lewis who dropped the ball today, like, put the ball on the ground today. Derrick Henry, this offense just really didn't look good against the Bills. They're kind of vulturing each other. You panicking on Deion Lewis because I know you're already not a Derrick Henry believer.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm not panicking on Derrick Henry at all. Deion Lewis, absolutely. I mean, he's a victim of an entire offense that isn't producing. We thought this situation would look a lot different coming into the year with Matt LaFleur as the offensive coordinator. They've been willing to do some outside of the box thinking on the offensive side of things as well. So like everything on the outset of the season looked like we're ready to go with Deion Lewis. But as the season's gone on, Marcus Mariota has been inconsistent. He's been dealing with a lot of dropsies on offense as well. Nobody can seem to catch a ball. Derrick Henry looks terrible running between the tackles. And if the entire offense is struggling, it makes a lot of sense that Deion Lewis is going to be struggling as well. Now, the question is, do I think it's going to turn around? And I don't have much hope that it is. I think that they're in a funk right now, and it's going to take a little while to get better. The good thing is they have a really good defense so far on the season, and they've shown that they can hang around. So I do think the opportunity is going to be there for him. And he's somebody I'm not going to give up on. He's going to be on my bench for the next couple of weeks until it turns around.
What's interesting about that D is that they're super slow paced on offense. So like their D's playing well, and they only had 53 total plays today. So again, and that's another thing we talk about with Arizona as well. Like some of these offenses where players aren't being productive, it's in part it's just that their offenses are so old school, and there's so many offenses right now that are putting up big numbers. They're running a ton of plays. They're playing with pace, throwing the ball a lot. So there's a pretty wide gap, and Tennessee is one of these teams that's lagging behind. They're willing to just like play these grinded out games.
Yeah. Jay Ajayi, Beer, you panicking about Jay Ajayi?
Absolutely. I mean, how can you not? There's always a running back in Philadelphia that looks better than Jay Ajayi. Sproles in week 1, Clement looked better than him. Now Wendell Smallwood looks better than him. A guy that was on the borderline of being cut by the Eagles. He looks like the better running back. So the guy's always dealing with injuries. Now he gets a short week on a Thursday night. The problem is, what do you do with him? You can't trade him right now. Nobody wants him. Can't really cut Jay Ajayi, unfortunately. So he just kind of lags on your bench. It's that dead weight on a fantasy roster that you hate. So plenty of panic. This Philadelphia team doesn't look as good as last season. This guy can't stay healthy. You have to be panicking about Ajayi right now.
We just had a gentleman at 32 Alvarenga say, "Can I drop Corey Davis already?" It's a rough day for the Titans.
Yeah, tough matchup there.
He put a crying face emoji, so hopefully he knows what's up. All right. Now, again, you're watching the Fantasy Insiders Sunday night halftime show. Now we get on to the waivers for week 6. We're going to talk about the week 6 waivers. There are some teams, we talk about like players that we're panicking about. There are some teams right now that are 2 and 3 that are going to be 1 and 4. If you're 0 and 5, just pack it in, right? Like if you're 0 and 5, play some DFS, have some fun.
Spend time with your family.
Right. We got NBA coming up. So yeah, if you're 1 and 4, if you're 2 and 3, then maybe we can salvage a little something. But we do have some interesting waiver wire pieces. We talked about the injuries, and let's just spend time a little bit on this Breida injury in San Francisco, because if he's got a high ankle sprain, Is it just going to be Alf Morris? Is he going to be the only one that's going to be there? Keep in mind, San Francisco, they've lost Jerick McKinnon so far. Today, they were also without Goodwin, and who was it? Pettis was also out. Like they're hurting right now in San Francisco. Who's the next man up, Ben?
Well, yeah, they used Raheem Mostert today. He got 5 carries as their third back. I'm not sure if they have anyone. I mean, I'm sure they have like a practice squad guy or somebody that will be brought up. But the other guy was Kyle Juszczyk, who I think he had 7 targets today. Was very active in the passing game, kind of coming out of the backfield. So I mean, we know Beathard's going to check down, and it's looking like Juszczyk's going to be kind of like the main receiving back. Morris got 5 targets as well, but I think he has a little bit of sneaky PPR value if Breda's out, and they got to get a little bit creative.
Hey Ben, it's Juszczyk.
Yeah, I don't know how to say his name.
I kind of like Juszczyk better.
Yeah, Juszczyk. It sounds like
his Twitter name is @Juszczyk.
It's like someone trying to sell me something. Hey, I've got this new Juszczyk product. You have a couple seconds? Let me talk to you about it. Got a Juszczyk.
I think if you actually roster Kyle Juszczyk, you have to do a juice check every 15 minutes. Is this guy actually catch a ball?
All right. Top ad for the week. Let's just assume that Robbie Anderson is cut in your league. Is he the top ad in of the week, assuming that you just got a normal, regular league? Anyone say no to Robbie Anderson being the top ad? So we have all yeses.
That would make a lot of sense.
It's kind of an ugly group this week. So he tops the list by default, in my opinion. I mean, the 2 touchdowns was nice, but 4 targets?
Yeah. I thought he had 5 targets.
5 targets. But the issue is they only threw 22 passes, and that's what we're going to see from the Jets anytime they get ahead. They got a rookie quarterback. They're willing to run the ball. They ran 38 times to 22 passes. So that's what we're going to see when they're behind. Yeah, they're going to push it. The big news for him, I mentioned in Stealing Signals last week, was that when Jermaine Kearse came back, they completely cut Terrell Pryor's snaps, and Pryor was running some deeper routes, and his ADOT was similar to Robbie Anderson's, was stealing kind of some of those downfield targets. Kearse isn't really that player, so Anderson might have more of a lock as the lone downfield guy now, which would be pretty huge for him.
Yeah, and the point that I would make is that they're not going to be running the ball 35 times for 300 yards every single game. So I think his targets are going to bump up. And even though he had 5 targets, that was tied for the team league in targets this week. Sam Darnold only completed 10 passes, and 3 of those were to Robbie Anderson. And Darnold's deep ball looked very, very good today. That's one thing that I noticed in week 1 when he hit Robbie Anderson for the 40-yard touchdown is it looked like a really, really good throw. And it seems like it's something that he's very naturally good at. And it just so happens to match up very well with Robbie Anderson's best quality. He looked great on that first touchdown grab. He did a little stutter and go, and he was 3 steps behind the cornerback by the time that Sam Darnold threw the ball. So I think that's something that's going to continue to develop as the season goes on. That's the entire argument I made for trading for Robbie Anderson this week on the Fantasy Insider Show. So he's somebody that's not like I'm not looking at the waiver wires and just saying he's the best of a bad group. I actually think he's a good ad.
Way to very subtly pat yourself on the back.
I did mention that on the show this week.
Ben, what did you mention on the show that added any value?
I don't remember.
Yeah, me either. All right. As far as big performances this week, here's a list of guys that had big performances. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Obviously, no Geronimo Allison. It's probably going to be, Geronimo Allison probably going to be back next week, though. David Moore, we mentioned him, 2 touchdowns. He is a spark score freak for the Seattle Seahawks and did great. Austin Hooper had 12 targets. We also saw in that Thursday night game, Chester Rogers be heavily targeted because they didn't have anybody without T.Y. Hilton and Doyle. Eric Ebron, I'm guessing, is probably gone. Ben, you mentioned Martavis Bryant. And then also Dante Moncrief. 15 targets, 186 air yards. Ben, you put in there also sucks.
Yeah, not a big fan of Dante Moncrief. They threw 61 passes today, so That will be my first asterisk next to Dante Moncrief's line today. 15 targets is great, but I mean, two other guys had 10 targets. Now's Paul had, I think, 9 of his own. So you had just plenty of passing in that game all the way around. And with those 15 targets, he put up, a Dante Moncrief line. I think he actually got over 70 yards again, which makes now 7 career games that he has broken 70 receiving yards in over 60 career games. So not a very good receiver when he's not scoring touchdowns. I don't think he's going to score a bunch here. Yeah, he caught 6 passes for 76 yards on 15 targets. That's not very good.
So with you and Dante Moncrief, it's like you think there needs to be an asterisk every time a player who's bad happens to get a lot of targets. On behalf of him, could we make it a sucks asterisk?
Yes. Sounds good to me.
The sucks asterisk.
Jeff, I know what you're trying to say.
What am I trying to say, David?
I'm not going to say
Put
it.
that with
Come
the
on.
juice check.
yeah. Don't put that with the
go.
juice check.
I just figured it out.
Yeah, there you go, Ben. It's on that delay stream. All these guys, though, most of them are wide receivers. Like they're like you got Austin Hooper as the one guy, as the tight end. Like maybe another tight end, Jeff Swaim. He had a very good first half for the Cowboys. He could also be a potential add, but lots of wide receivers. As far as like the big plays from these guys, Beer, who is a guy that you would pick up on this week based on his performance today?
I would love to say David Moore, but they only threw the ball 21 times. So you can't, it's the 2 touchdowns was nice. I loved what I saw in preseason. It's carried over. Obviously, Brandon Marshall's a corpse. They want to give this kid opportunity, but how many targets are there to go around with Lockett and Baldwin already there? So I will take a shot on him in a deep league. I do like Robbie Anderson. Jeff, you make a good point. I'm just upset I cut him in one of my leagues, and now I'm not going to be able to get him back. So, we'll see. Yeah.
You cut him.
I needed a tight end, and he was the bottom of the roster. So instead of Robbie Anderson, I now am a Rhett Ellison proud owner.
Nice.
Yeah.
You should have thought that through before you actually made the roster decision. Like I'm dropping Robbie Anderson
with no tight end.
Yeah, I'm in a couple leagues where tight end, like a lot of tight end injuries also, plus the bye week this week. It
stung a little bit. So we'll see. I gotta get him back.
I'm rolling without a tight end in our home league, David. I could have dropped Robbie Anderson for some bad tight end. I'm just rolling without a tight end.
Yeah. Red Ellison, that's a deep ad. Jeff.
Hey, he got a 2-point conversion.
There you go.
Not all he did, but
Jeff, who would be a big performance ad that you would consider this week?
I mean, I know we just kind of crapped on David Moore and his opportunity, but he's
no. Beer crapped on David Moore and his opportunity.
Okay, well, I happen to think that Pete Carroll has been talking of David Moore now for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben, you know this. You probably watch every single press conference that Pete Carroll has, but
for sure.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks in a row now where he's talked about getting David Moore more involved in the offense and basically phasing out Brandon Marshall. So if that's the case, it's not like I'm going to expect Russell Wilson to throw the ball 20 times a game going forward. So it makes a lot of sense there to assume that if he's the number 2 wide receiver in this offense, if Doug Baldwin's not going to play and he's opposite Tyler Lockett, that there's going to be plenty of opportunity there. Now, if he's going to be the number 3 wide receiver, sure, it's more of a dart throw. But I like David Moore a lot, and I think that he definitely represents somebody with high upside if we're talking about big play opportunities.
I got one. I got one for you too. High upside guy, probably been cut, not in dynasty or keeper leagues, but in some leagues. DJ Moore, every single time he gets an opportunity, continues to be really impressive with the ball in his hands. I mean, that's just like film talk. He hasn't put up a ton of numbers, but they've gotten him rush attempts in multiple games so far this year. He caught all 4 of his targets today. Torrey Smith was pretty much non-existent today. So it seems like they came out of the bye, wanted to get him more involved. They also used Curtis Samuel a lot. I want to see the snap counts, the routes, see how much he actually played. But he has been really efficient so far this year. He had a long catch and run for a long touchdown earlier in the season, I think in week 2. So that's a guy that I think throughout the year is going to continue to earn more playing time and could be a stud come, November.
Also in that game, Ian Thomas, the rookie tight end, had 6 targets, 3 catches for 38 yards. Unfortunately, looks like Greg Olson's coming back next week. So not sure how that impacts things. All right, Chester Rogers. If Chester Rogers is in your league, he's available. Let's say a Robbie Anderson owner was not silly and dropped him for a Red Ellison. Let's say Chester Rogers is available. Would he be the highest pickup in a PPR league?
I don't know if he's the highest, but he looks a lot better than Ryan Grant.
Well, it's just a volume thing. Like, I mean, just getting a lot of balls thrown his way. If T.Y. Hilton is out.
Yeah, I think he's very usable. Sorry, Beard, did you have a thought on that?
Oh, he is, because they're going to throw the ball 50, 60 times. So he's going to get some targets. Yeah. You know, that's the difference in comparing him with, I love David Moore, but believe me, but a team that's going to throw the ball 30 times or 60 times, I would rather have the 60 times.
Jeff?
I think there needs to be a sucks asterisk here, because Chester Rogers could not catch a ball on Thursday night. Yeah, he had the targets. And it's not going to look bad on the stat line. Chester Rogers, 11 targets, 8 receptions for 66 yards, but he had 2 crucial drops.
Wait, he couldn't catch, but he caught 8 of 11 targets?
Did you watch the game, Ben?
Yeah, no, I know. He had a couple big drops, that's for sure.
Big drops. One was like a 30-yard gain down the left sideline. The other was in the end zone. It should have been a touchdown catch. So, in your face, Ben.
But he obviously caught some other balls.
He did catch some other balls, but I'm just saying Ryan Grant is there, who's also getting a ton of targets. He had 9 targets of his own on Thursday night. And I had the decision to make who to pick up, Ryan Grant or Chester Rogers. I decided to go with Chester Rogers just based on the volume. So I didn't come out too bad on it, but I think going forward, I would actually like Ryan Grant over Chester Rogers.
All right. What about some of the other performance, like Hooper? Ben, like, where are you on Austin Hooper?
I mean, I think a big thing, you want an asterisk. I mean, the big thing we got to remember here is that Julio Jones had 0 catches through the first half and the majority of the third quarter. I mean, he ended up with a decent line when they were in comeback mode, but whatever Pittsburgh did defensively, they took Julio out of the game. And coming into the week, he had the highest weighted opportunity rating of any player in the NFL, meaning his share of the targets and air yards in this offense were massively high. And we've seen that before. And they also like to throw to the running backs. And what happens is kind of the rest of the guys kind of have to compete for targets. Last year, Sanu and Hooper were kind of negatively correlated, I think, if I recall correctly. And they're not really guys that tend to boom at the same time. This was a game where they both did boom at the same time, but in large part because Julio wasn't really performing until late. But with Calvin Ridley there too now, it's always going to be tough for him to get too many targets. Is kind of my concern. But obviously a great day today, and it's a thin tight end pool, so I'm not going to say don't pick him up. Like, yeah, he's in play.
Okay.
He's not Red Ellison, but he's all right.
Yeah.
Also, if you look at the buys coming up next week, I'm not sure if you guys seen the buy schedule, but New Orleans and Detroit are on a buy. There are going to be some teams that are looking for some wide receivers, some running backs that might need some help on the bye week. And also, we've got some big buys coming up week 7 and week 8 with like 5 teams on there. So get these guys now, and hopefully you won't get burned in the upcoming weeks. Injuries, though, man. Injuries and bye weeks. This is the time of the year where you're just trying to avoid stepping on a landmine. All right. As far as like a possible injury replacement, Josh Reynolds. Ben, you mentioned Josh Reynolds. This is dependent on 2 things happening at the same time, though.
Yeah. I mean, I put him down just in like this is a really concentrated offense. We know that. I think if either Brandon Cooks or Kupp plays, the offense still probably flows through Gurley, Woods, and whichever of those 2 is on the field. So you probably need both of them to miss, and then I think Josh Reynolds would be interesting. If one of them, if one of their concussions is bad enough, and Cooks looked pretty substantial, and we know he had one in the postseason at the end of last year, so who knows what will happen with him throughout the week. But if he misses or Kupp misses, Reynolds will definitely see a lot more run and could be a little bit intriguing as like a deep league option.
All right, deep pickups. I think both these guys are dependent on just like what your opinion is of the Raiders, because you got Martavis Bryant and you got Jalen Richard. We already talked about how there's just not a lot of running backs on the waiver wire, unless you feel good about Juszczyk or Mostert. Like, just not a lot of guys. Someone has dropped Alfred Morris. Yeah, obviously, go pick him up. But running backs, they're just not there. Jalen Richard, he's like a PPR, negative game script, matchup dependent guy. He faces the Seahawks next week, so I'm not sure that's going to be the case, Ben.
Yeah, probably not a good spot for him next week. They're using Doug Martin as kind of the second back in plus game script. The between the tackles guy, Richard did have 5 carries in week 1, but he only has 4 since in the 4 games since. But he has 3 games now with 6 or more receptions, so I think he's kind of hard to ignore. The floor is low, but when they get behind, he's very, very involved. He plays as their pass catching back, and yeah, I mean, 6+ catches in 3 games. He's very able to bunch together catches. So if you're in a deep league, if you're really hurting at running back, I mean, he's somebody you can stash and use in games, maybe not against the Seahawks, but in games where you're expecting Oakland to be behind or throw a lot late, in the second half. He could at least bunch together some receptions in PPR leagues and get you double-digit points, which is it's worth owning, I think, in deeper leagues.
Yeah, if it's a deep league stash, I mean, worst case scenario for him is what, 3 receptions for 15 yards or so?
All right, here's a worst case scenarios are Ben Gretch's favorite pastime. If you had the choice of picking up Jalen Richard or Donta Foreman, who looks like he'll be back after his IR stint, week 7.
Foreman all day.
All right, he might be a guy that's
probably gone in a lot of leagues. I think if you didn't grab him this week, I grabbed him in a bunch of leagues and checked in a bunch of other leagues. He had already been picked up. So
yeah,
he is still out there. Lamar Miller's been terrible. Alfred Blue is a good second running back, but
right,
they put him in that offense. He could be the difference maker.
He's a perfect pickup right now as well, because he's coming off an injury, and he's the kind of guy you add, you wait and see. We'll know pretty quick if he's even like 80%, because if he's not, it's going to be pretty evident. He's coming off an Achilles, and you can move on from him as well if you had to. But he's the kind of guy that's definitely worth taking a shot on because the upside's very high.
All right, we advocate the late round QB strategy a lot on Fantasy Insiders, and that means streaming quarterbacks. Bryce Varble says Ronald Jones ? He might be like he legit might be
back.
Yeah,
a lot of those. So
I picked up Nick Chubb a couple weeks ago as well. Like any fresh backup rookie running back that you want to pick up that was had some sort of steam in the preseason, go for it.
Except Rashad Penny.
Yeah, don't
0.
pick him up.
Leave him out there.
Yeah,
Mike Davis.
The Mike Davis show. Yeah.
But Chris Carson had over 100 yards on the ground today.
Yep. They both ran a bunch. Seattle is I mean, I in a lot of places predicted this week that Seattle would be forced to throw more because the Rams would smash their secondary without Earl Thomas.
Yeah.
And they found a way to lose the game by just continuing to run the ball every single time. I mean, they were efficient running the ball today, but their offense was annoying. And 32 rush attempts to 21 pass attempts. That's fun.
Hey, Ben, remember when I said, well, what if Todd Gurley scores 3 rushing touchdowns when we bet on Deshaun Watson versus Jared Goff? Remember when I said that?
I don't remember that.
Well,
I don't remember that specific point, but I forgot about the bet. You're probably going to win that, aren't you? Checking the game now, and he's throwing it to the end zone. No touchdown.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I don't think you're going to win that bet, David.
Oh, yeah, I will. Don't worry. I got faith. All right. As far as quarterback streaming, because we late round quarterbacks, we advocate for them. You also have guys like Drew Brees owners that are going to be needing a quarterback. So QB streamers, we got 3 options for QB streamers this week. We got Andy Dalton versus Pittsburgh. We got Jameis Winston coming back off a bye against Atlanta. Both these teams in that shootout today. And then Baker Mayfield still might be available to some of those teams against the Chargers this upcoming week. I want you to rank those 3 guys. And as much as I love Baker Mayfield, I have a feeling he's going to be number 3 on this list. Beer, we'll start with you.
I'm willing to roll the dice on Jameis Winston. This Atlanta defense is historically bad. I mean, they're just giving up points
and hurt
bunches. Yeah, I mean, so I think Winston knows my job's on the line. I got to play. I got to step it up. So indoors in Atlanta, I like Winston 1. Dalton against Pittsburgh would be my 2, and Ben, sorry to say it, Baker's my 3 there. Chargers defense looked a little bit better today.
Is Jameis going to be eating that W this upcoming week?
There
you go. We got it. Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, I rank it the exact same way for the exact same reasons. I mean, if Jameis doesn't come out and perform, then we might as well put Ryan Fitzpatrick back in the game the following week because it's a perfect opportunity for him. He's going to have one of those 340 yards and 3 touchdown stat lines, and he's about as safe as it comes.
Guys, if you have any questions, let us know, by the way, in Periscope, on Twitter, on YouTube. Let us know. We're about to get to a short little question answer segment. All right, Ben, how would you rank those 3?
I think I'd have to go the same way too, but I would say it's
real original,
close.
Ben.
It's
real original.
Closer than these guys think. That'll be my hot take. Because I mean, Dalton is not great in division games. We know that he's home, but I think Winston's probably a better bet to be solid in that matchup. Dalton has the potential to lay an egg, but he's been good. Baker, I'm all in on the talent, but again, we're going back to these offenses that are just want to run the football. And, all day today, I wanted to see them call more pass plays, but they continue to focus on the run in a close game. He did end up throwing I think he threw over 40 passes because it went to overtime. But for the majority of the game, it was a pretty slow game, grinded out game. They're calling a lot of runs still. So I would want the 2 quarterbacks in offenses that are throwing more. Novel concept.
What's that?
So that's a novel concept. You want the quarterbacks that actually throw the football.
And he just said it was going to be closer than we thought it. Than we're saying it's going to be, and then pissed all over Andy Dalton and Baker Mayfield.
But it's close.
Sounds about
right.
Well, Winston sucks too. He's just bad.
Oh, they all suck.
They're all bad.
All right, we got some questions. Is Chris Hogan droppable?
Yes.
Ooh, we got one yes. Jeff, you say yes?
Oh yeah. Hell yeah.
All right, Ben.
I mean, droppable, yes. I wouldn't drop him for just anybody.
Would you drop him for Robbie Anderson?
I'd rather have Hogan, I think.
Would you drop him for Red Ellison?
Red Ellison, yes.
That is the question. I wish Chris Hogan was on my damn team, so I could have dropped him instead of Robbie Anderson. Hey, that just shows you how good that team is when Robbie Anderson's the bottom of the cut line.
Oh,
fair enough.
Sorry.
I could have been one league. Anderson.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, he's been trash.
We talked about this on the show, though. Like, Bear, you were sleeping, so you weren't on there, but we talked about it. All right, so let's see. What wide receiver rank could I trade Sony Michel for? That from at AJ Click. So
wide
you
receiver
got Sony Michel. What wide receiver rank? What tier wide receivers could you trade for?
I think you get a lot for him. Running back there's not a lot out there. We're losing running backs left and right, and we just talked about how many receivers are available. So I would aim high on that one. I'll say 15-ish. I don't think you're going to get a top 10 receiver back, but 15 sounds like a decent number.
And I agree. I think you should aim high. I don't think you should settle because what's the point? I mean, there's a lot of good receivers out there right now, and there are people who are gonna have to pay a premium for running backs. So, I would aim higher than you're thinking, probably.
Well, you don't know what they're thinking, so.
Well, if they're asking the question,
I know, but they're asking just what rank. They didn't like say their personal opinion.
Truth.
Yeah. Okay. All right. As far as other questions, hit us up on Twitter at Fantasy Insiders. So I don't have the YouTube stream open. So if you've asked a question in there, I apologize. I've got like 1,000 tabs open, but I don't see any more questions on Periscope.
There's a question on the YouTube stream.
Okay.
Should I trade Josh Gordon? And I would say if you can get value for Josh Gordon, you should probably trade Josh Gordon.
Yeah, like 60 cents on the dollar kind of thing. Like,
Yeah, it depends on how valuable the dollar was
Yeah, I was
originally.
about to say, you don't know how much the dollar is valued is the problem with Josh Gordon.
It's probably more than you think, Jeff.
Yeah, well, you don't know how much I think.
Well,
All I
okay.
know is when that Josh Gordon trade was made, listening to David on air that night, it was like Michael Jordan got traded in his prime. And you need to pick this guy.
It still could happen, right? Like,
Yeah.
but if there is a major trade, I'm always going to get like super excited about it. And Jeff is always going to get super negative about it. That's just how it is. Just how
no, this all happened because last year Jay Ajayi got traded.
Yeah.
And you're like, how could he not be a top 10 running back? And it's like, well,
no, I think I said he's going to win
traded mid-season.
I think I said he's going to win the Super Bowl. And he did.
No, that's not what you said.
And he did. The New England offense is going to be they're going to be fun for like New England fans, but for fantasy fans, not going to be fun.
Especially if James White keeps leading the team in targets. I mean, my prediction last week on the show was that he couldn't keep leading the team in targets, and then he went out Thursday night and led the team in targets again. So
solid, Ben. Solid.
Yeah. Really well done there.
Well, that will do it for the show. Again, you can catch this article or this video and all the articles. We got a new little format from Ben Gretch. It's going to be really fun this week, the Stealing Signals. Also, you can catch us on the SiriusXM Fantasy Insider Show, midnight Eastern, Monday through Friday, midnight to 2 a.m. Eastern. We answer calls live on there. You can catch Beer pretty much everywhere. He's got a six-pack. We got NBA coming up. You can catch him on the SiriusXM on the Roto Grinders Show. So lots of good stuff. Gentlemen, appreciate everybody tuning in. Let us know what you think, and we'll be back next week on the Sunday Night Football halftime show where we discuss the recap and the waivers for the following week. We'll see you later.